Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Dr. John Bruni's on the line. Doctor, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. What was your first house like?
My first house. Oh, God. Well, it was the family home, and it was beautiful, and it was in Torrensville, and it was over 3/4 of an acre block, which I'm sure you won't be able to get for a reasonable price. I had a swimming pool. It was lovely.
And that's when did you leave home, though? I mean, that was your parents' house, was it? Did you?
Well,
how did you get them? How did you get them to move out and give it to you?
No, that didn't actually happen. I left home, so.
Oh, I see.
That's when I went off on my international stuff, and I was living all over the place. I lived in Canberra, lived in Abu Dhabi, so I wasn't kind of like sitting in the folks' basement or anything like that. But look, as far as a stable location that was close to almost everything, where it was situated was absolutely brilliant. And yes, when the folks died and the divorce happened, and all of a sudden I was by myself in this huge property, I had to actually downsize. So, it happens to many people, and I must say I do regret having made that decision because, quite frankly, I'll never get a property like that ever again.
It's an adventure. Doctor, Dr. John Bruni from Sage International. I rang you, Doctor, because I'm fascinated by this event in Lebanon, where, the Israelis are not admitting that they have done anything, and they're not denying it either. This sort of exploding pages and walkie-talkies. What do you make of all of that?
Well, all I can say is that this will certainly go down in the annals of Israeli intelligence service skullduggery, and they have been known to pull off some extremely clever events over the last few decades since 1948 and the foundation of Israel. Yeah. So in terms of their ability to develop a situation whereby they can survive in a very hostile environment, it is amazing what innovations they have managed to do in order to save themselves from...
You say, John, skullduggery. I would class it as a masterstroke.
That depends on where you actually sit, because if you happen to be an ordinary Lebanese person going to the market and standing next to a person that just blew up because his pager blew up, I think you'll have a very different view.
Yeah, but we've got drones and we've got all sorts of things happening, and people being beheaded and raped, and it's not a pleasant circus, is it?
But is it? Well, was it in fact a war crime that they committed in
Some people are alleging this, and I suspect that war crime or state terrorism, I mean, when we talk about Israel is a polarizing topic, to be sure. Everyone's got an opinion, and those opinions are very strongly held. So I'm not going to be convincing many people who are either on one side or the other. But as an analyst, you have to look at both sides. And there is certainly an argument to say that what Israel has perpetrated, as clever as it is a form of terrorism, just Israeli terrorism. Now, was it justified? Well, look, at the moment, Benjamin Netanyahu, and I have to separate the Israeli leader out from the state of Israel, but anyway, Benjamin Netanyahu has been provoking that very tense northern border with Hezbollah now for quite some time. We're caught now in what we call an escalatory cycle. Now, the thing is that these provocations are designed specifically to trap Hezbollah into a war. Many people, including Defense Minister Gallant, has been saying that there is, a reason for them to favor going into southern Lebanon and to take out Hezbollah like they took out Hamas. The thing that your listeners have to understand is that Hamas has not been taken out, not successfully at least. Every time the Israeli Defense Forces in the Gaza go through a particular area, they think that they've, destroyed every last vestige of Hamas, only for them to have to repeat the performance again and again and again, because these Hamas fighters are decentralized. They're moving all over these little tunnels and various other areas, and certainly there's a lot of rubble in.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
For them to use shelter with. So there's a whole bunch of things going on there. And then you've got these guys in Tel Aviv saying basically, well, we want to have another war, only with a much larger and more capable force, which is Hezbollah. I don't know whether or not the state of Israel will be able to support such an adventure, because the current war in Gaza has taxed Israel in, economic ways, militarily. Israel is a small state, and it's fighting a multi-front war, or will fight a multi-front war. Actually, it is fighting a multi-front war if you take in the likes of its confrontation with Iran and the mob down in Yemen, the Houthis. But if you add then Hezbollah, which is right on its northern doorstep, and it's got all these we imagine tens of thousands of rockets / missiles / drones aimed in a very short distance from Israel itself. I don't know. I don't think that Israel will come out of this unscathed. So all these clever little devices and ploys serve a particular agenda. There is a clique within Netanyahu's inner sanctum who want to have war with Hezbollah, because they think we've gotten rid of Hamas now, which they haven't, as I said, and they're going to go and fight the larger foe, and then all of a sudden we'll have peace.
But John, in principle, we would all suggest and say that Hezbollah and Hamas are part of large terrorist organisations which the world doesn't need, and nowadays warfare / terrorism is not orthodox like it was in the Second World War or First World War, if it was ever orthodox. I mean, now with technologies that are being employed to surveil people and to profile people, there's that much available to those who want to create mischief, if you like, or create solutions, and that's another way of looking at it. It's almost like expect the unexpected, and what's going to be next? Laptops exploding, computers exploding, motor cars exploding. I mean, all these things are possible with microchip technology and Wi-Fi. But
nobody seems to want this thing to escalate any further.
Well, that's actually a good point, Jeremy. I mean, the clear-headed and clear-eyed people out there who don't really have much skin in both games, either on the axis of resistance side or the, Netanyahu side, sit back and say, gee whiz, if this spirals out of control and turns into a region-wide war, have you really thought through what this is? There are people who are what we would consider hawks in this whole situation in Israel who think that they can pull off a VEVJ kind of victory around the borders, that, you'll have Israelis celebrating the complete and utter collapse of terrorism as a concept in the Middle East, and they're going to all be living in peace, and everything will be fine. Well, the Middle East today is not what Europe was in 1945 or Japan was in 1945. And it also took a lot of money and a long military occupation by the United States to normalize Germany and Japan post-war. Now, as far as I understand, the war plans that Netanyahu have on the table does not include an open-ended occupation of either southern Lebanon or Gaza. Right? Now, if that's not going to be the case, and you've got all those traumatized young people who had lost parents, uncles, aunties, mothers, fathers, children, whatever, they're going to be looking for revenge at some point. They may be beaten down by Israel, but they're going to come back. They're going to come back and they're going to do something, whether it's under the brand of Hamas or under some new terroristic organization.
Yeah, they'll go on hating. They'll go on hating.
So here in Australia, as we spoke previously with Neil Genman regarding real estate, and I made the comment about the spiralling rise of costs and the cost of living in Australia. There's only one way to stop that. You've got to stop prices going up and you've got to stop wages going up. Now, you're the analyst and the expert in the field. Does anyone have an appetite, or do you think there is a solution to all this? And if there is a solution, what is that solution?
Well, the solution, the easy one, the low-hanging fruit solution, is the one that we've given up on, and that is Israel maintains itself as it did prior to October the 7th, which means that there will be tensions between the state of Israel and whatever you call Gaza.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
There will be tensions between Iran and Israel, and there will be tensions between Hezbollah and Israel. The fact of the matter is, though, any notion of any notion of having continued or going back to that sort of tense but stable situation is completely and utterly over. Netanyahu, by his It's not even, and let me make this abundantly clear, Israel did have and continues to have the right to defend itself, but it is in how it defends itself that I think a lot of people have a problem with. October 7, you needed to have revenge for that, just like you needed to have revenge for 9/11. There was no question of that, but it was always what came after which was problematic. America had to go in and occupy Iraq. It had to go and occupy Afghanistan. That turned out to be a complete and utter schmozzle. And I would argue that the sort of war that had been prosecuted against the people of Gaza as a consequence of a really awful act by Hamas, and considering that Israel is so clever and can pull off so many things, and it's proven time and again in its history that, a merry band of, commandos can really take the head off the snake in a quite profound way. Yeah. They haven't done it. They haven't done it this time. Yeah, and that's a problem.
Hezbollah, I take it that Hezbollah went to this sort of low-tech pager and walkie-talkie system because they knew that the Israelis could track them on their mobile or smartphones.
Correct.
Okay, so they've gone to this low-tech communication solution. Now they know they can't go on with that. What's left? Flying pigeons? What can they use?
I did see the cartoon, and today, I don't know, I think it was the Australian, where you had a couple of carrier pigeons and one dead under a solar panel that had apparently been booby-trapped by the Israelis. And it's like, that's funny. That's funny.
It is funny.
But again, what it goes to show, Jeremy, is the adaptability of these groups. Now that we know that the supply chain that Hezbollah relied on had been compromised by Israeli intelligence, I'm sure they're going to be taking even more precautions to diversify where they get their material from and double check before they pass it out to their operatives all over southern Lebanon. I'm sure that's going to be the case now. This was, as I say, quite a legendary bit of intelligence work on behalf of the Israelis. But whether that's going to land a knockout blow, provoke Hezbollah into a larger regional war, that's still yet to play out, and I'm hoping that the larger regional war is something that we're not going to be saddled with.
But when we spoke real estate, and if I use the real estate parlance, when you have warring neighbours, whether it be over fencing or noise or what have you, the only way you ever find a solution is either the law steps in and stops it, and someone gets pinged, and that's an easy solution, or the two warring partners hoist up the white flag and shake hands and agreed not to ever talk to each other, but they keep the peace. Now,
or one of them moves.
I still go back to this point. Is there ever going to be an appetite where the terrorists are going to be content and say, okay, we're prepared to hoist up the white flag, or are they going to continue to, tickle and trick and stimulate through activities Israel, which wants to be a democracy, wants to get on with their life? This is the eternal conflict, isn't it? Where is it going to stop? This has been part of our landscape of life ever since all of us in this room have lived. It's always been the same.
Look, Les, you raise a really interesting point, and I think that the only simple answer that I can give you here is that no, it's not going to stop. And it really comes down to the foundation of Israel, the belief that the Palestinians had held sovereignty over that land before the Israelis came, that the international community has not done a great job in managing affairs and have been quite happy to let people just run about and do whatever they liked, which meant that, on the Palestinian side, you ended up having a very radicalized and resentful population, and they have to sit right next to a democratic Israel. Now, how do you prevent problems from arising from that?
But how far do you go back? The Romans used to call that neck of the woods Judea, which is the land of the Jews.
And look, when you look at Europe and the carving up of Europe from World War I to World War II, the Potsdam Convention, when Stalin, Churchill, Eisenhower sat in the room, and I've been in that room, they carved up Europe to suit themselves. And look at the outcome of it.
Yeah,
look at the outcome. I mean, humans make errors in their judgment, and then humanity pays the penalty.
I saw a really interesting thing yesterday on something called game theory, which is something that I'm very familiar with in my line of work. Now, game theory is usually a means by which you can understand how conflict happens and how you can resolve conflict. But again, if we're not prepared to sit down with our opponents at any level, I mean, whatever level you want to sit down with them, if you want to really put all your cards on the table and solve these things without killing people, you need to talk to people. The one thing that we don't have in the Middle East is a method by which people with long-standing grudges and, revenge on their mind for whatever injustice has been perpetrated against them, you don't have any negotiation tactic. You can't follow the peaceful line. Now, whether or not the Israelis unilaterally say, look, guys, enough. You know that we're militarily and, from an intelligence perspective, superior to anything and anyone in the region. Let's just call a truce. Yeah. There would not be any Israeli, no thinking Israeli, who would think that they want to treat a group like Hamas or Hezbollah as a legitimized political entity. End of story. So you can throw that completely out the window. So the only thing that we're left with is war.
Yeah. Thank you very much for talking with us, John. Just before we say goodbye, have you heard that there's been a mass exit of executive senior people from the submarine authority?
Oh, no, that is news to me, but I'm going to have to look into that.
Yeah, it sounds weird, and the pretense was no, nothing to see here, no, everything is fine. Well, 6 or 7 senior people just don't get up and leave.
Not unless there's something really bad going on. No. There may very well be.
I can hear the siren. Thanks, John.
They're coming for me, Jeremy.
No, I'll save you. All the best, John.
Cheers, John.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Dr. John Bruni from Sage International.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.